Bolts Nation, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Bolts Block Party. I am your host, Greg Wolf, joined by the broadcast professional, Braden Coburn. I mean, you may say that, but you're a professional now. We've seen him on Bally. We've heard him on the Bolts Lightning broadcast, and we're excited that you continue to amaze us with your intellect on the TV broadcast.
That's a little too kind, but thank you. I have fun with it.
Well, listen, there's a lot of milestones that are happening here at our Tampa Bay Lightning home over the past couple seasons, this one included. And this gentleman who is joining us this afternoon on the Bolts Block Party is another one of those milestone individuals. Joining us today is our manual therapist for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Christian Rivas. Christian, thank you for joining us this afternoon on the Block Party, and congratulations on your 1,000 game milestone.
Thank you.
Amazing, I'm sure, for you to be here with us. And
I'm honored to be here.
The whole career with the Lightning.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the journey, because 1,000 games is a lot. Obviously, Hetty also hitting that milestone, Stammer as well. But you're in the 1,000 game club. Yeah. But we want to know about that journey from youth to how you got into the manual therapist game and how that's gotten you to this point.
Well, I mean, originally from New York, born and raised in Queens.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when I was bartending, obviously, didn't get into it right away. But then in about 2000, left that and decided that I wanted to pursue something a little healthier.
Okay.
I had fun bartending, but I think at that point, I wanted to pursue something in health and fitness. And so I got into fitness game for a bit and was a personal trainer for a bit. But I gravitated more towards the manual aspect of it. So at that point, I started thinking about going back to school. And lo and behold, I went back to school. I went to the Swedish Academy. Massage therapy they had a medical sports massage program. It was like a 2-year program. And then decided that wasn't enough. So then I went to Canada in Toronto. I did an osteopath program there.
Okay.
At the Sutherland Academy of Osteopathic Medicine in Ontario, Oakville.
Okay.
So lo and behold, a few years into that, around 2006, a buddy of mine out in Darien, Connecticut, his name is Ben Prentice. He's pretty
He's like a famous trainer.
Strength coach.
Strength coach, yeah.
Okay.
He was out of Darien, Connecticut.
Okay.
So he had a lot of NHLers there. I mean, he had Pacioretty, he had Quick, he had Marty St. Louis.
As far as guys that he was working and training with? Okay, got it.
Yeah. So at that point, once I graduated school, I said, look, I really I want to get into have some subjects, and particularly athletes. And I said, look, I'll come work for free as an internship for a summer or two. And that's when I met Marty. And then that was summer of 2006.
Okay.
So we kind of continued on the whole journey. Every summer I'd come back. I'd work in New York City under a mentor of mine, Dr. Keith Pine, but worked a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball. So got really lucky just to surround myself around mentors that were working with pro athletes. And I just, followed along and just kind of took whatever clinical knowledge I had and realized quick that whatever you learn in school is great, but you really kind of have to throw yourself into the roles per se, basically, yeah. So really I had the privilege to work with Marty quite a bit and a bunch of other players in the summer there. And to fast forward a little bit, a few summers later, now we're getting to summer of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on the table and he's like, hey, you know what? We just lost our therapist in Tampa.
For the Lightning, yeah.
For the Lightning. And he had known that my mother and my sister lived out here already. And I've only visited Tampa just twice a year. I'm like, I never thought I'd live out here, ever.
Okay.
But lo and behold, he's like, well, I'll introduce you to Tom Mulligan, who's our ATC, our head athletic trainer, and maybe consider it. He's like, no BS, no promises, but I can get you an interview, and I think you'd be great, and why don't you give it a shot? So sure enough, I got in touch with Molly, and he's like, sure, we'll fly you out. we'll interview and we'll go.
What is that process like? Do you have to like work on a subject in front of them? Like what is an interview process like for a manual therapist?
I'm sure having Marty as a
sure
reference is pretty good. But
Yes.
It didn't hurt to have an endorsement from him, but in the end, I think there was like 2 other interviews that they were looking at, one other guy, I believe. So between Tom Mulligan and Mike Poirier, who's the assistant ATC, we're all still working together after all these years. But it's funny. When I flew down, the funny story was that I was actually treating at that time Sabby Piscatelli, who was safety for the Bucks at the time. So I kind of was a little bit of an opportunist, and he knew I was flying down. He said, if you're going to be here, I'll pick you up at the airport. I'll drop you off at your interview, and then afterwards, maybe you can treat me at my house, and then I'll drop you off at the airport.
Yeah.
So we kind of did 2-in-1 like that, and I came and I interviewed with Mike Poirier, actually, because Vinny LeCavalier at the time was having he had fractured his hand, so they were Molly was with him and the surgeon, and so I interviewed with Mike Poirier, and sure enough, yeah, there is a process where they want to see what kind of different scenarios and different kind of skill set that you have. One of the conversion guys had had hurt his wrist, so I actually started treating him and started working with his wrist and stuff like that. And then Tom Mulligan came back, so I treated him, and he gave me a few scenarios to do, and based on the summer stuff that I used to do with Marty and all the guys, it was a different venue, obviously, from the summer to this venue, where everything's a lot more fast-paced, a lot more condensed, a lot more pressure, but it took a little getting used to. But once you kind of fit into that model, I interviewed. Sabby picked me up. A couple days later, I was communicating with Tom, and
I love how your interview is. You fly into town, you start treating a buck, you start treating guys around the building, you start treating trainers.
Well, I know I'm sounding like a little bit like a tool right now, but the reality is, it is part of a funny story because. So Tom's like, look, we love it, and we'll be in touch. I mean, we love what you bring to the table, but we'll have to kind of talk about it, and I'll talk. Is
that something you really wanted? You wanted to work with a team, or were you kind of like sat around just like being kind of
I was torn because I was working kind of just freely in New York. Like I said, under my mentor in New York City, and then in the summers, I was busy all summer there. But it's funny because when Marty asked me, I said, look, I'll think about it. But then I thought to myself, why not even explore it? So the next morning I had called him and I said, is it still open? He's like, I don't know. I already told him that you're kind of thinking about it. So you're just kind of messing with me a little bit. I'm like, no, I'll do it. I'll go out there and I'll interview, of course, and explore the option. And when I got here, I was like, this could be amazing. And I really want it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say I really want it. But I really did. So the funny thing is, the interview's over, and Mully walks me out to channel side, and sure enough, Zabby pulls up in his little Maserati, jumping, and I'm like, all right, so Mully,
I'll see you later, right?
I'll talk to you. He's like, who the hell are you? What the hell is what's going on here? So I jump in a car, and I'd say about a week later, they offered me the job, and I couldn't be happier. And I didn't even tell my mother and my sister and my stepfather that I was even here, just in case I didn't get the job. And so it really was a special moment too, to be able to.
So fast forward.
Yeah.
Had you ever worked with a team before? Like, because when I look at you, like, you work so well with the other staff, the players. Like, you're kind of like the fabric of the team. It really is amazing. I can't see you like not being a part of this team. That's kind of the way I've seen it ever since I've been a part of it.
Well, I appreciate that. No, and I will say that was one of the toughest parts, because I've always, being around these guys in the summer, and they would have a tournament at the end of the summer. So I was around the locker room in Connecticut with these guys, but not full time like this. So it was a little bit intimidating to come in, especially with all these guys that were already ready-made, Ray, Phil, and all these guys, they've been together for years at that time, 15, 16 years. So I came on a ready-made staff, and I was the only one. So I kind of kept my head down for a little bit, but I guess once you start getting, once you're in the locker room, you really kind of feel everybody out. It's a pretty welcoming environment if you're really open to it. It's incredible.
Especially you. I mean, because you're literally manhandling bodies like for a living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how often do you have to work on your craft and take seminars and go, to classes and because obviously techniques and things change as we progress.
They evolve. I have to be honest. I'm constantly reviewing and I'm not alone in this. Like staff I work with, we're constantly practicing, constantly kind of talking about the latest, the latest modalities that kind of come out. But some of them, they're not even so much new. They're just renovations of older techniques. But if you amalgamate them to a certain sequence, they actually become new.
Sure.
And depending on the player, the position, either it's for recovery or improving performance. Like even there's so many, like with you, I remember we used to do the mulligan seat belting for your hip and stuff like that to decoap your hip and increase range. You increase range, you increase power, output, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So it's never ending. I'm constantly reviewing because I'm kind of obsessed with it.
It's one of the things I loved about working with Christian was every year you come back and he's like, I got these new ideas. We're going to try this. This is what I think is going to be working. I've been thinking about doing this with you. And you're humble enough to be like, hey, I was, and listen, I think you are the best therapist I've ever worked with. And
thank you very much.
He's been around a lot too. So
well, and the thing about it is like, you're humble enough to know and that, hey, like I don't know everything, and you're hungry to learn. And I think some guys maybe have, they get put off by, hey, somebody else or do it. But you are always just a constant lifelong learner. And that's one of the things that has allowed you to be such an amazing professional in your job. It's really,
that. Well, I think I take that a lot from the players. Because it's like with all of you guys, like when you're in the either on the ice or even in the gym with the little golf ball, tick 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 tick, thousands of times,
the stick handling,
the hours and hours and hours. You wonder why do you bother practicing that? You've been doing this since you were 3 years old.
Right?
Why practice it? It's because there's like expressions. Repetition is the mother of skill.
Correct.
Right? So the more you practice something. Even Cooch is another one, the same thing. Like you see him practicing over and over. All these guys are just practicing the same drill over and over because it's a little bit different each time.
Right.
And so you find a new nuance doing the same thing with treatments, different way you put a stroke or the different way you position these athletes to treat them depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
It's different every time.
Hey, you're not a big guy, and you mentioned,
Yeah, I mean, look at you.
Well,
you're a big dude.
So I'm big, but you mentioned you were treating some football players, some basketball players.
Yeah.
I think about the differences in sizes. You're looking at a guy that could be up to 400 pounds as a football lineman,
a couple guys like that.
And a guy that's 6 foot, 7 foot. Basketball guys.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? Because this job is like manually intensive.
It is. It's pretty strenuous. But for one, sometimes you get lucky. Here we have these hydraulic tables. You can drop them a little. I drop them all the way down for some of these guys. But like I said, I was fortunate enough to learn from pretty experienced practitioners that really, really focused and really drove home the importance of, body mechanics and really understanding how to leverage your body to actually be. They say actually the best therapists are the laziest because you learn how to kind of, station your body in such a way that you conserve energy. And for big guys like him, it's just kind of leveraging your body to kind of transmit enough force
to get
that
where you need
that doesn't require the least amount from me and the most output on them. And and I was humbled too a couple times. I started exploring a lot of Thai massage where they do a lot of stretching. And some of these therapists, whether they're male or even female, some of the females are 5 foot, 120 pounds, and they'll put it on you. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's
I was
amazing.
always amazed. Like he would like manipulate me, and I'm like, how is he doing this?
And again, it really is. I learned a lot from them. Even just getting treatments from different types of philosophies, I kind of just kept taking mental notes. I would look at how they're positioning their body and stuff like that. But more you kind of do more clinical, research and stuff like that. But in the end, it's just being in the field and trying to take these little bits and pieces like that I can apply here. And because you're right, I'm not this big guy, But yeah, I definitely it's ranged, and some of these football guys are humongous.
Massive. So you mentioned the hydraulic table. How is, I mean, that's just one element, but how has technology changed your job to make it a little bit easier for you?
Technology.
I mean, a hydraulic table is one example.
Well, I don't obviously I don't travel with one, so we travel with a light table that has like telescope legs, and I can lift it and lower it. But for the most part, I think a lot of it is over the years is learning even how to use my hands a certain way, or even position the athlete a certain way that requires me to kind of expend less energy, but also kind of access different structures and tissues and certain in a way that'll allow me to kind of move around the table in a certain way.
So you don't use any like toys of any like the fascio guns or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have them.
Right.
You know, we have the Theraguns. We have all these tools, and I will use them. And like I said, the seat belt, or I have some of these fascial abrasion tools that what a fascial abrasion tool is essentially, it's a tool that's kind of beveled edge and has a
go against the on
yeah,
the skin,
against
right?
the
What does that do? Because I've had a doctor do that to me where
Yeah.
they're like rubbing on your
so
leg.
there,
I'm like,
there's
what
something
is
called
that?
Graston is
Okay.
one thing, is the main one that's actually just stainless steel and
Yes.
smooth.
Yes.
The one I use is actually was devised by one of my other mentors, Dr. Mark Scappaticci out of Toronto, and it's actually a granulated texture. And so it's almost, you know, when we go to the airports, they go through my bag and they think it's because it looks like a knife.
Okay.
It looks like a hatchet, like a machete. And but it says fascial abrasion tool.
Got it.
And it's got this kind of granulated texture. It's got all these beveled edges, and I use this cream. And so what you do is you put the let's say your quadricep has a strain on it, and you put it under enough tension, like 70% of tension on it, and you go on an angle, and you use this tool to kind of scrape along the connective tissue, the superficial tissue.
Okay.
What essentially does is creating heat from the friction. So the sebaceous glands, the actual sweat glands, will actually begin to open, and we use this cream that's heat activated.
Okay.
So when you sweat, it'll actually
Get in
drive into the pores, and it'll actually go deep into the muscle and remain warm. The first prototypes were so hot that some of these guys would run back and start putting baby powder on, but I think they perfected it to a point where the guys really love it, especially when they have strains like that.
Yeah.
You use that. So I use tools like that do help, other than just my hands. But
I want to kind of go back a little bit. So you're hired by the Lightning.
Yep.
You come into the building, and I remember when I got here, you were introduced to me as Poppy. So I want to kind of hear the story about the nickname Poppy.
Yes.
How did you get that? Did you have that before you got here? Who gave it to you?
no, I'm funny. We had this conversation not too long ago. It had to have been somewhere. I believe it might have been either Nate Thompson
Okay.
or it might have been Stammer.
Okay.
Because being the only Hispanic guy in the team, I think my first year, I remember we used to do the shaving cream for birthdays and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that, and
The
they all
what?
came.
What is that
so
all about?
yeah, we should probably tell that before
You should
people.
probably tell that, like the shaving cream incident.
So
What
for
is
your
that?
birthday, we don't do that much more anymore. But for your birthday, you'd get snuck up on, and when you're not expecting it, you get a
Pie.
full
Like- oh, like-
pie of
okay.
shaving cream in your face.
Okay.
And it would sting for hours. But yeah, I just remember that happening. My first year, I was actually working on Matthias Oland and Pavel Kubina. I remember coming, and there was a video of it. I don't know what happened to it. Sure enough, he's like diverting these guys, and my back's to the door, and sure enough, Bugsy Malone, and of course Smitty, always the culprits, just came in with two Gatorade towels full. Must have been 2 bottles of shaving cream each, and just got me in the
your
face.
eyes.
And I think joking around, I think I might have cursed in Spanish or something like that. I don't know. And sure enough, eventually they're like, "Oh, Papi, poor baby." And then eventually it just stuck. Everybody
always
just
something
called me.
stupid like that,
It's
right?
always
It's funny how
something
that-
dumb
yeah.
like that. And yeah, and now years later, it's people sometimes ask my girlfriend, "Oh, are you Christian's girlfriend?" Like, "Oh, Christian." Oh, Poppy. Oh, Poppy. Yeah, Poppy. And sometimes they don't even call me with my real name, but it's I guess it's an endearing name.
So
Absolutely.
working on players, and this obviously probably happens more times than not, but has any of our guys just in you're working them out and they're loose and they're released, do they ever just rip one in front of you? Like just, but that's a good sign because you're getting them where they need to go. Has that happened to you?
It has happened. It has happened more often than you think. But you know what?
They're relaxed. You're putting them in a good spot.
It's a lot of times.
I've been doing it silently just during this interview. You guys haven't noticed yet.
It has happened, and it's happened not just here, but even privately too. I think it's more comfortable here than privately because I mean, people tend to get embarrassed in here. There's little things that'll embarrass.
Like, oh, thanks, Poppy. I was holding it in all day. Now, you're obviously, again, your job is to manipulate and manhandle grown men, so to speak, to get them into playing shape, to get them to where they need to be. How difficult was it to get Kobe sometimes into, into game mode?
We would have like the way it's split up with so. If you were to be able to see what goes on, just before a game,
give us the rundown.
Give us a rundown of your routine.
So, I mean, obviously today is a game day, so we would, if we have a skate, we come in early in the morning around 7:45, and my colleague Mike probably gets here probably 6 a.m.
Okay.
And his job is pretty strenuous too, is all the drinks and all the different tailor-made drinks for all the players. I mean, he comes in pretty early. So by the time I get here, it's 7:45 or so. Guys come in and we just do normal kind of tune-ups and small little tune-ups and routines like that. But prior to the game, right before warm-ups is where it goes down. Am I right? I mean, there's a million things. I might have 5 or 6 guys that come in. I spend about anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes, give or take, with each player, and it's kind of a sequencing routine that's kind of geared towards more performance, more enhancing the nervous system, to stimulate the nervous system to perform.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not a fluff massage, or it's not even a massage really. It's a lot of it is very quick paced, kind of very quick kind of stretching technique that's not long-winded. There is some fast-paced kind of massage even over the clothes. So it's considered more of a pre-event kind of thing. We're not really geared towards fixing anything prior to the game. That we do that in the morning, because you don't want to put the nervous system under so much tension because if you do that, it tends to kind of, in essence, go to sleep.
Okay.
But for a 7 o'clock game, so Poppy will be here probably around 3:30 kind of thing.
Around then,
and guys start showing up at 3:45.
Okay.
And typically what happens is most guys have like a window, a slot. My time was right after the meeting.
Okay.
Right.
We have a meeting at, I don't know, like 5 o'clock.
5:15.
Yeah. So I would be right after that. And each guy would have a little bit of an area. So Poppy's got and what he did for me would be different for another guy. Different routines for different guys.
Sure.
And
correct.
If something happened, the meeting went long, or I couldn't get in this Poppy, it was like, it would throw me right off. I'd be like,
it happens. Sometimes meetings go longer, and sometimes even then, that's what I meant earlier, is that in the summer, you have an hour or so with each player.
Sure.
So I mean, it's more relaxed. These guys are training, but now it's game mode, and you literally have a certain allotted amount of time, so you have to kind of really be vigilant about sequencing things and still stay under this time frame.
Sure.
So
is it only?
And he's got 20 guys.
I was gonna say, are you working on every single guy on?
No, but that's what I mean. I'm not here by myself. Obviously, I'm working with an amazing staff. And like I said, Mike Poirier, and recently we lost Brandon Rogers. Went to the Rangers. This guy,
I know. I know his wife.
But we did hire Lucas Morris, who's been a wonderful addition. So we are a pretty tight-knit collaborative group. I mean, we definitely hand off and delegate, things.
Certain guys say, no, I'm working with Poppy.
We each have, like, Mikey has his set of guys that go to him.
Right.
And his skills with taping and everything like that are just stellar.
It's just based on what guys
amazing.
need.
Yes.
It's based on need, and guys understand what other, what the staff is capable of, and they go to what they need to be ready for the game.
Like they'll come to me to kind of do the pre-event routine, and if their neck is a little stiff, sure, we'll kind of get things moving a little bit better and get things a little decongested. And then if they happen to have a shoulder injury, they need to get taped. It's all kind of follows in a sequence. They'll come see me, then they'll go see Mikey to get taped up, and it's kind of a well-oiled machine when it really goes down before a game. It's quite amazing.
It's pretty remarkable.
So Poppy, what I'm always curious, and we ask guys this all the time when they come on the podcast, but we ask guys about their NHL moment. They're welcome to the NHL moment. And something that you knew you were in the NHL, whether it was a player or a coach saying something to you or something happening. Do you have a moment like that like
The deep sigh.
that's something like
It's kind
comes
of
up?
embarrassing, though.
Oh, here we go. We like a good embarrassing story.
Well, it's anybody will tell you. Yes, I've been blessed and somehow fortunate enough to get into this pro sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I played some sports when I was younger in high school. I played a little football in high school, ran track and what have you. But I'm not a sports fan. I love sports.
Okay.
But like yourself, I mean, if we're gonna sit here, you're gonna ask me, "Oh, how those Bucks do last year?" I know what goes on, but I don't follow it all that much.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, we get to the Super Bowl, we have Super Bowl parties, we watch. Of course, it's amazing to watch.
Right.
But I just won't sit down and watch, baseball games in their entirety or what have you. So the reason I say that is because I catch a lot of slack because sometimes, they even Molly's like, "Who do you got on this game, Poppy, for this?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the Tampa Bay Crookers, or something." I don't follow it. So the point being is that my NHL moment, I believe we were in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Ironically enough. It was our first road trip. It was Dallas.
Okay.
It was our first road trip. So Marty, of all people, decided to make this my debut, and he went about telling Mikey Poirier, because it's my first year. I'm just trying to kind of see where I fit in, where I'm needed, where I'm not needed, where do I need to be, where do I don't need to be. So it's just learning by trial and error. So, do you need anything? If somebody would ask me, "Listen, Christian, go ask, this guy for these laces or whatever." And sure, if I'm not treating somebody, I would help the equipment staff. We all kind of help each other out. So all of a sudden, Mikey tells me, it's our equipment manager at the time. He's like, "Hey, Poppy, go get the keys. Go get the keys to the penalty box." Yeah. Go get the keys to the penalty box. So I'm like, sure, okay, sure. So who do I ask for the keys? Right. So I'm looking for the staff there in Dallas. I'm like, where are the keys to the penalty box? My equipment manager is looking for them. He asked me to get them. So then he starts laughing in my face. So I turn, he's just bright red laughing. So I look over at these guys and they're all dying laughing. And then I realize, Jesus Christ, it's a penalty box. But because you're in that mode, you ask me for something, I will go get it. But and all these idiots are just laughing hysterically. And that's when I realized that. Yeah,
moment.
Pretty
That's
much.
Fantastic.
That's what we should have got you for your 1000th game, is just like a set of keys for the penalty box. That would have been great.
That is amazing. So you're a big family guy. I did a little research on your Instagram page, and family seems like it is paramount to you.
It really is.
Yeah, talk to us about just being a family guy and your family.
Yeah, a lot of my family's still back in New York. My sister is in Maryland. She actually a little over 8 months ago had a set of twin boys.
Congrats, Uncle.
Yes, they're beautiful, and I'm actually going to be a father myself.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Wow.
My beautiful better half is 20 weeks.
Okay.
20 weeks now. So it's funny because on a little bit of a sadder note, this year it's as anything, we've lost a few members of our family, and as the cycle goes, it's kind of people leave, and then now we have this new bloodline coming in. So it's sad but very exciting times.
Sure.
My mom is here in Tampa. So, we, between my family and my girlfriend's family, we really do get together and really a really strong knit. They love coming to games. They're incredibly supportive. And Kobe, as you'll attest to, like in this game, travel so much.
Yeah.
We don't spend a lot of time during the season with our family, and it's incredible how supportive and how amazing they really are. The sacrifices, yes.
Absolutely. These guys, him and Hetty share a birthday too.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
found
it was
that
me.
out.
It was Hetty. It's Hetty, myself, and Brian Boyle, December 18th when he was here.
Yeah.
All three of us same
Are
day.
you Sag or Capricorn? Because I'm
Sagittarius.
December 30th, so we're getting ready to be Capricorn season. Baby.
Poppy, I'm sorry, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
congrats.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's
I'm
amazing.
so happy
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
That's number
Thank
one
you.
for you too, right?
That's my first.
Oh boy, he
yeah,
has no
that's my
idea.
first.
Kobe, you want to give him some dad life advice here in the first year?
This guy's giving me more advice, and it was remarkable because you can come in as players. Sometimes we come in and something happens. You get injured, and you're playing well, and bone breaks or muscle tears or whatever it is, a tendon. And the unbelievable thing about Poppy is he treats the whole body.
Yeah,
and that includes like
your brain,
the mental part of it.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the things that that makes this guy so special is that he could be fixing something on your body, but he's like nourishing your soul too. He understands that, hey, I'm going to make this guy better. If we like get him to relax or make him feel better, like, hey, instill confidence that you're going to come back better than ever.
Sure.
And it was just
Huge.
one of his superpowers.
Even just a little rounds of breath work too.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, you're hearing this more, and I think that's where a lot of times too. I think the pressure that these guys particularly get under,
for sure.
It's there's pressure all around. But I think in the end, like you said, you stack family life.
Yep.
Being a father,
Yep.
two kids and,
Yep.
and a wife, and trying to travel and manage your career and trying to really make a difference out there.
Sure.
Not just for yourself but for your team. Right? Like these guys try to do what they can to elevate their team, and
Right.
and then us as a staff, we try to all do what we can to elevate each other. Not just as a staff, but just as a whole team.
a great
We're
point.
trying to elevate each other, because there's going to be a time where some of us are down.
Right.
We're not feeling great.
Right.
Whether it's emotional, something happens. We have personal lives.
Sure.
Things happen, but sometimes you just gotta come in and still kind of do
Do
what
that.
you're what you're here hired to do. And but the great thing about this job in general, I hate to call it a job, but it's just to be in this situation it's incredible that this staff, or just the people that I'm surrounded with and I work with, I'm just so blessed, because it really is. I couldn't imagine doing something else. You know what I mean? It's to
your
elevate.
life.
Yeah. it
Poppy,
really
I
has.
want to ask you about
Yes.
something that I saw the other day on TV. They showed the highlight of Stammer's goal from the bubble
Yep.
when he came back. And I know, and and a lot of people know about, the struggle for him in the playoffs. He was hurt all playoffs. And I got a first, a great seat to seeing all the work you did with him to get him to that point, just to come for that one game.
Goal.
One goal,
Yeah.
one game. Can you kind of talk to us about that whole experience with Stammer and what you saw, and then what ended up happening to him?
Well, I mean, he obviously at this point we could talk. I mean, he had a little
Years
bit of
ago.
a lower abdominal. It was pretty much a tear
Okay.
in the lower umbilicus part of under your belly button. There was a significant tear in the muscle bands in there. So anything that transmits force, it's going to go through your trunk and your core.
Which is like the most important
everything.
thing with skating.
Of
It's
course.
basically
Like it
everything.
is.
It's everything. And anybody, it's not a secret what he's been through and throughout his career. It's incredible what he's done. But that particular time, I mean, obviously there was a few of us that really, I should say, that at the bubble, they had a lot of people there, even from Toronto. A lot of different therapists were there. So I'd be negligent to say that it was just, I did work with him a lot. There were a few of us working on him for sure. So I can't take full credit, but we did do a lot of work to try to kind of keep things loosened up, not just in that area, but just everything around it. Just like you said, I mean, some of the osteopath techniques that I was fortunate enough to learn is to understand that he who treats the site of pain is lost. I mean, you have to kind of look at things from a global perspective to try to understand that the body doesn't work. It works in kind of unison to kind of, as you're skating, walking, or whatever it is. I think the main purpose, because he had this tear, that we had to kind of unload things around him structurally.
Sure.
But a lot of it really was him, because it was, most people be like that there's no way I'm doing this. But it just goes to it's a testament to what these guys do. I mean, you just can't stop them. It's unbelievable. And when he kind of got up to that moment, when he got out there, because it was in the first period. It was early on.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there was a lot of taping involved too. Mikey had to tape in a certain way to kind of take some tension lines. What what we do is kind of take some tension off the area by working on some of these peripheral structures. But then you have a guy like Mikey, who will tape things in a certain way and put tension lines in a certain way to kind of offload the tissue, so that way maybe just for at least get him to at least, and then in between periods or just relocate the tape or just keep it. And
amazing that he was like held together by tape.
Basically,
held together by a thread and then
basically
tape.
And
you guys knew that, right? And
it's the playoffs, right? I mean, here we are, and
everything's on the line.
Everything's on the line, and it just again goes to testament. He just got out there, and he was coming up right up on the right wing, and when he hit it, I mean, all of us just, there were no fans in the building.
Right.
That's the thing. So you could hear us just absolutely.
Nuts.
I think everything changed at that moment.
So do you think he re-injured himself when he took the shot because he put so much on it, or was it the celebration with the guys and everybody was so excited?
I think it was a little bit of
both.
All of it. Because
Yeah.
once he took that shot, it's like, ooh. Yeah,
He knew.
That was it. And once he got back to the bench, I would imagine once you have that kind of adrenaline running through you, you can't really ascertain what happened until the adrenaline wears off. But
like,
when it wore off,
He
that
knew.
was it. Yeah, that was it.
What a crazy story.
But what a goal. I mean, it
changed the
elevated
landscape.
all
Yes.
of us. All of us literally levitated
I'll never forget
because
that goal.
it was unbelievable. It gives me chills because it really took us and carried us, and we just, boys were like, we're doing this right now, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, I know we've kept you for a while,
Nope,
Christian.
it's a real pleasure.
I just got a couple more here before we get to our Fact or Fiction presented by Highlight. So you've obviously 1,000 games. It's a huge milestone in anybody's career. Obviously, Hedman, Stammers, this guy over here. You've experienced a lot of highs and lows, right? So what have been your personal best highlights over your 1,000 games?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
If you had to pick just a couple of your milestone moments.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, a couple would be obviously raising that beautiful trophy.
Yeah.
Over my head. That's, again, never working with any other sport on a team. They do say it's the hardest to win, and such a long season, 82 games, and you stack on, playoff games. I mean, it goes without saying to actually be able to win it. And then not only that, but everything leading up to it. Obviously, our first one, we were away from our families.
Right.
You start thinking, but so much superstition is involved in this sport. Let's say with any sport.
Sure.
If you can't say it, oh, we're going to win this. And you can't say anything. You just got to just keep going. Like we're obviously we went through the first, second, third, and now we're playing Dallas and we're in the Cup final. And, but you start actually letting yourself think, we might win this. You don't want to say it, but I guess when it actually happens, it's all that craziness, all that, everything just literally becomes like when you see the movies, it's just, everything goes mute. Everything just becomes, it's a moment
It's like
that
euphoria.
I can't, yeah, exactly. You can't describe it. And you look to the guy on your left, you look on the guy to your right, and all of us that we worked our asses off to make it happen. And it's a moment you can't describe. When you look to the guy next to you, you guys give each other a big hug, and then you get on the ice. And then the phones come out, of course, and you're talking to your wife, your girlfriend, and they're bawling, crying. It's because you've been away for so long, and then you almost feel bad for the opposing team to go through all that
And then lose, yeah.
But still, it didn't stop us from celebrating. It was incredible, and
Poppy's the only guy that can hug you and manipulate your back and crack your back at the same time.
That is great.
yeah. And I mean, but over the years, obviously, just how many times we've been at, even in the conference final, was it like 6 conference finals? We've been, this team has been just, this organization as a whole has been absolutely incredible.
All right.
To be a part of.
Fact or Fiction, presented by Highlight. Do you have any
Oh,
for
boy.
yourself? Do you want to throw one out there? Like a little bonus?
We'll see where you go here.
All right. Excuse me. I'm getting all choked up, man. You got me thinking about the Stanley Cups. All right. So if you guys are paying attention to the very beginning of the podcast, you should be able to pick this one out. But Fact or Fiction, Christian, you were at one time a bartender in Brooklyn.
False.
But elaborate. You were a bartender.
I was a bartender,
But-
in the Boogie Down Bronx.
Boogie Down Bronx. Where did you bartend?
Bartended, got my start at this little spot called the Step In Lounge.
Okay. Have you visited the Step In Lounge?
Is that the one where the bartenders wear the thongs? Is that the one?
Well, in the summers.
Okay.
Does that picture exist? I'm sure the ladies want to know. Don't answer that. All right, fact or fiction? You are famous for bringing your suitcase to the bus when the team is not leaving.
Never. That's true. That's true. That did happen. That did occur.
That one.
Again, you know what? I'm gonna get stuff
Sure.
for this, but you can't hide it, right? Because these guys know me so well already. I tend to be a little bit of a scatterbrain.
Okay.
I have to admit, and my girlfriend will attest to this as well. We typically, when we're on the road, we have our morning skate, we have lunch at the hotel, we get there, then we have a little free time, 2-3 hours, what have you.
Sure.
Either nap or whatever, to do whatever. Most of us will nap, but so typically you'd pack your stuff and go. And so there are occasions where, depending on where we're at, like even recently, we'll stay overnight and then fly the next morning.
Got it.
Just because of the time difference, what have you. But I guess you do become like kind of a robot. You just kind of pack your stuff,
Your
and
thing.
then you just get it and just have it all ready there. And then you take a shower, close your suitcase, and
Yeah.
run out the door and get to the 3:45 bus or whatever.
Creatures of habit.
Of course.
for
Creatures
sure.
of habit is. But again, it just goes to show, like, you have to look at Ryan Bellick, who's our coordinator of travel, and he does it all. It's incredible what he does. But there are itineraries, and if you stop to look, but sometimes you just get into this mode where you just kind of boom, boom, boom. You just get into this kind of tunnel vision, and sure enough, I just roll my suitcase out. But now, in hindsight, usually everybody else is rolling their suitcase
Sure.
out. I just wasn't. But again, the first bus is not many people on it, so just threw my suitcase on there. Game's done. I think we were in Calgary, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but we're done with the game. We get on the bus, and of course, another thing goes on. I just put my headphones on, either listening to music, a podcast, or something. And all enough, I ended up dozing off on the bus, thinking when we get to the airport,
Good to go.
somebody will nudge me, and we'll get up and we'll get on the plane. Open my eyes, and it's not the airport. We're in front of the hotel again. So I'm like, oh boy. Sure enough, we're all getting off the bus, and then Ryan Bellick is right there at the top of the stairs. Welcome, Mr. Rivas. Welcome back. And it's I'm the only noodle with his suitcase, basically. So my suitcase is the lone one there, and of course, I just got absolutely punished for that.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
It happens.
Poppy,
It
it
happens.
happens. I
But-
can't even tell you how many times I've gone to another city and I realize that the spare suit that I hung up in the closet is still in the closet.
Still in the
Did they contact you at least? To
No. I contact them.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, roll that
Oh,
thing
yeah.
up in a ball and send it back to me. It's kind of how it was in the closet anyway.
Same thing. Poor Ryan Bellick. He's the one that he'll probably get the first call
To say,
when
hey, and then he's
a
gonna
couple of
call
us
them.
knuckleheads that leave things behind.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan, I was in room this. I left something behind, but yeah.
Okay.
That's true. That's true.
Speaking of hotels, fact or fiction, you check in on Facebook when you guys are staying at really nice hotels, but you refrain when it's just a regular old Marriott.
Oh my God, I'm gonna kill these guys. That is true. That is true. That has since ceased.
Okay.
It has stopped. But there was a period where, in my defense, because I'm a little bit scattered, I at times we do go to all these great restaurants in these cities. We try these new places. I'm gonna stick with this. Is that you check in
Yeah.
so that way I can look back.
Oh, and say, here's where we went.
This is where we
Genius.
went. This is
It's for the players. It's for the
of
players. So
course.
we don't, he might go somewhere, we might lose him, so
Yeah.
we know where the last place
yeah.
he was.
Yeah,
We
there
can
you go.
start looking
That's
from
it.
there.
There you go. That's
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Whatever floats your boat on that one. Okay, interesting. All right. True or false, fact or fiction, you learned how to actually do acupuncture on the back of a Cracker Jack box.
That's false.
That's not true. Was it on Kobe's face?
Maybe.
There's a lot of real estate there.
All right. Fact or fiction, you do some pretty good impersonations and accents. I don't want to throw Cooch out there post celebration, but I heard about that one too. But I heard you do some good ones. Who do you do? What's a good one? Papi.
Well, I mean,
He's got a lot.
Now I have to say, they do say that, imitation is a form of flattery.
Facts.
So I don't know. Some people might not like it, but
Okay, but for this purpose.
for this purpose, Cooch is a good one.
Cooch is a good one?
Yeah.
Like what about Cooch can you impersonate?
Number one. This Montreal, they do the last playoff. That was their playoff.
Yes.
That's their Stanley Cup. So number one. They take this guy Flores. This for the Vesna. With this guy, that's Vessi. It's the best in the world.
That was really good.
He's got a lot.
That was
He's
really
got a
good. All right, listen,
He's my favorite.
we're gonna
He really
end
is.
on that one. Christian, thank you again
Thank you.
for taking
Thank
the
you
time.
very
No, thank
much.
you, and
Thank you,
I know
boys.
our
Thank you very much.
Bolts Nation. I'm sure they're going to appreciate this to get to know you.
Yes,
a little
thank
bit
you.
better, and 1,000 games. Congrats on
one of
that
the
as
hardest
well.
working guys in the organization. Like
Thank
By
you.
far.
it really is. You can on the road or wherever we are. It could be midnight, 12:30, and this guy's set up in his room, making sure guys are ready to go the next night. So one of the
Awesome.
glues that keeps this team together.
A testament. Christian Rivas, thank you so much again
you
to our
very
friends at High Life for again powering the Bolts Block Party, and we will be back next week with another episode of the Bolts Block Party. You guys have a great one.
Thank you very much.